Now, if we're really going to launch into this thing, and I want to make a second suggestion before having to go Sunday to the service at Methodist Church, I had intended to dedicate at the beginning of this rapidly running out period of time a suggestion that we do something to honor Niles Graham. Are there any relatives of Niles Graham here? Good. He was a drunk. He was a really famous drunk in Austin, Texas. He may have been the first true slacker. Niles Graham was a grandson of Governor Pease, and he inherited the mansion, and he failed at everything he ever did. Niles Graham, according to a recently transcribed interview that was done with Walter Long in 1957, didn't just fail to pass a grade. He never passed a test. He's somebody that we can hold up as an absolutely pure icon. As a matter of fact, his gene pool gave us Miss Cruzman, who's run off all the meat eaters in Terrytown. So if you know, it's been my experience, and I'm from Mississippi, so I should know this. Gene pools all have a shallow end. Niles and his sister screwed up Major Breckenridge's plan to extend the University of Texas from its present location all the way to the dam and make it a glorious place, completely unfettered of real estate needs. When he sold Pease Mansion to Shivers in '56, he was taking the beautiful paneling off the study walls and burning it in the fireplace. But he did give a party. And because of him, we've got a picture of Governor Moody and Will Rogers riding close up together on a stuffed horse in the living room of the Pease Mansion, both of them sprayed in the face with Drunk as a Skunk in November of 1925, right in the middle of Prohibition, which is kind of getting me back to beer joints. There's a lot of etymology to consider. You know, these places that serve beer can be called any number of things. You would think that if you're going to have one, you could just call it what you want, but you have to be approved in the name that you choose for your retail beer outlet by the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Control, a tool of the brewers and the wholesalers, who set themselves up after Prohibition with a set of rules that assured that they could tell the retail beer operator whatever they wanted to tell him. I'm sorry, there's a law. We cannot give you credit. We'd like to. The history of beer joints is the history of alcohol, its consumption, its abuse, the laws that have come to regulate it. Carrie Nations finally got her way because the abuses had just mounted up and society really needed to pull up for a while. And then, you know, there's those nasty Germans, and World War I wanted to break out, and so there was a lot of guilt by association. In Texas, it was discovered by the Attorney General's office that all the breweries in Texas, with the exception of Shiner in 1916, were owned by the August Busch family in one way or another. So restraint of trade and poll tax violations and an Attorney General's suit against them dissolved the charters of all the breweries but Shiner in the state of Texas almost 2 years before Prohibition started. When Prohibition ended, Kenneth Threadgill stood in line all night and got beer license number 01 for Travis County, December the 9th, 1933. Somehow that's part of my job description to know that. A lounge is a place, the dictionary says, where one idles one's time away. A joint in the dictionary is a dirty, cheap, or disreputable place of public accommodations of entertainment. You asked me to talk on that like I'm supposed to know something about that. A joint is the prison, where my friend Clifford Antone is. And then there's that Willie Nelson cigarette that everybody's talking about. Blame a lot of stuff on Willie. You know, he's become the Mother Teresa of the movement. The juke joint was a place where you could eat, dine, and dance to the music of a jukebox. And the Jukes were a fictitious family name for a real 18th century family that was the focus of a sociological study of the inheritance of feeble-mindedness and its correlation with social degeneracy. This joint thing runs deep. You know, the Roadrunner next to Threadgill's, when I started to remodel, was known as a police character bar. There's nothing in the dictionary about that. Gentlemen's club's not in my dictionary yet either. Now, I can remember where the last two places in Central Texas were that hung signs in the window that said men only. Now, gentleman's joint means that the women are naked. These joints mean that there's just no women. I mean, I can't imagine making the choice between those two. An ice house in my lifetime was a San Antonio phenomena where little markets that sold produce and eggs and ice to the neighborhood gradually got run out of the produce and egg business by the supermarket. Still had the ice, the beer was gold. Now, you know, my feeling is that today's vigilantes and lynch mobs are known as neighborhood associations. And I believe, well, you know, and this is the reason we need to talk about this in a bar. I think every neighborhood association, when it files for its membership as a neighborhood association, ought to have to put on the application where its neighborhood bar is located. Because without one, I don't think you've got a neighborhood. You've got to have a place, if we're really going to get to the place where we're the new age pedestrian-friendly city, you're going to have to be able to walk home from happy hour. Either that or start building some public restrooms. Ice houses used to have their own audio track. When the waitress would go through with the little tray and all those long neck bottles were on it, and those little barrel glasses were turned up on side, it almost sounded like a big tambourine. You know, it really had a nice, now, the study of beer joints, as well as the study of the law and the social pressures that caused them to change and end up where we are now, would also have to be a study of the marketing of these beverages, of this state of mind, of this new version of what in other societies was an opium den. I mean, you go into a lot of these places and you see some folks, you see them on the wall out here, you know, come on in, buddy, come on down. There's a need in some people's life to get away from certain things, and in other people's life they're trying to find certain things. There's connections to be made out there, and all in common there's that little buzz. You know, we've come a long way, just like the rats in the box. You know, we've all grown up knowing what happens when you put too many of them in the box. They eat each other. And they certainly honk their little horns and shake their little fists. You know, we've seen that on our own streets. And so today, instead of sitting around with that depressant relieving our inhibitions and, you know, steering conversation that is pretty much geared to waiting on the inevitable, We've got this new high-speed society working on us all the time. We have to have the motivation to work longer, not less. I grew up in a union family. You know, what's going on now is just completely contradictory to how my family wanted to have time with each other. Now we have to have speed. Starbucks has given it to us. Caffeine and sugar. New Yorker this month has a great cartoon. Are we in this Starbucks or the one down the street?